Body, thank you for joining us on this standards committee meeting here at the town hall. Just very quickly like to add my personal thanks to all the officers that have supported this committee over the last 4 years, in which I think I have been the chairman. It seems to have whizzed by, but on the other side of the coin, it seems to have been feels like a long time we've been meeting up. Thanks to our independent persons, all of you, excluding one today, for your support as well, and efforts and valuable input, and the varying number of different councillors that we've had, because people don't like me for whatever reason. Probably my dress sense. So thanks to the officers, thanks to the independent persons, and thanks to all the councillors that have served on this committee and helped to shape the governance of TDC in the right way. So apologies for absence. I do have an apology from Councillor Skills, who personally contacted me.
Thank you, Chairman. And to that, I can add apologies this morning from Councillor Gina Placey and from Sue Galone, who is one of the council's independent persons. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And just also to add, sorry, Graham, my Vice Chairman, Graham, who's done a steady job over the past 4 years. Item number 2 is minutes of the last meeting. You've had the opportunity to glance over those. Is there any comments, changes, or alterations, please, you'd like to make us aware of? That's a fair comment, Val. Fair comment. Looks like we're going to be. Were you here, Dan? You were. That's right, I do. That's right. Yes. Keep you on your toes. Right, could I have a proposer then, please, that we accept these minutes? Councillor Casey and a seconder of Councillor Steady. So all those that were here in favour, that'd be 3 of us. Thank you very much indeed. Declarations of interest is item number 3. Do we have any? Nope. None. Thank you very much indeed. Item number 4 is one of our familiar ones. Questions on notice pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 38.
None received, Chairman.
This is going swimmingly. Item number 5 is the draft committee work plan for 3/23/24, which is on pages 9 and 10 of your work pack or agenda pack. Karen, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members and independent persons. Before I talk about the work programme, just thought it worthy of note that all 4 of our independent persons, 3 of whom are here today, have agreed to continue in their roles for a further year as independent persons and also on the independent remuneration panel. So, thank you. And then for the work programme, this is for committee to view the proposed work programme covering the period from April 2023 to April 2024. The dates are provisional at the moment until approved at full council on the 23rd of May of this year. And if the committee are content with the programme, that they approve. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Karen. Congratulations to the independent persons on their promotion. Is there any questions in relation to the work programme, please, councillors?
Too late. It should be earlier. The induction code and the code of conduct training, that should be earlier for new members. July. Only my opinion.
Thanks, Val.
Chairman, I think this is just to update the committee on what training has been provided to councillors at that stage, rather than delivery of the training in July. And we'll come on to the plans in relation to the code of conduct training on the next item. But thank you for addressing that.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you very much. So no further questions on the work plan? Do we have to agree that, note it?
I think, yeah.
So proposer, seconder, proposer then please. I saw your hand first, Val. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. All those in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. That covers item number 5. Number 6 is new member induction programme. Keith, is that you?
It is.
Are you a new member?
It is, Chairman. I've been called a number of things, and I'm sure new member wouldn't be amiss for some people's description. But hopefully, I will be able to show you, take you through just a quick presentation. If I am able. Working for me, but just not on the screen. I don't know whether we can spotlight on.
Looks good from here, Keith.
It does. It does. But it's not coming through onto the.
The magic man also probably deserves some thanks that we don't see all the time. Keith,
Have you tried turning it off and turning it back?
bear with us there, members of the public, if you happen to be looking forward to this presentation.
Thanks. So we'll just take you on a whistle stop even tour, if we can, just on councillor induction. Just to say there is a now sort of councillor development working party that exists. So members do have an input into ongoing councillor development in a formalised way. And so that's been something that's happened in these last 4 years since the last elections. Also, it's worth saying that there is now a councillor development statement that was approved. Interestingly, I think that was 2019 when it was presented to this committee, and an interesting discussion. And I remember being questioned about live streaming and recording of meetings, and just how the world has moved on since then. But just looking, so we are looking at how we can improve councillor development. And have done, particularly over the last 4 years, and ensuring that the role of councillors in trying to shape that is recognised. So I think that's a useful just starting point. I know that in addition to those members of the committee and an independent person that aren't here today, it's probably also worth recording that Lisa Hastings has given her apologies today as the monitoring officer, and would no doubt have wanted to contribute or present the proposals set out. So we will have as sort of guiding principles or elements that we need to ensure are integrated as part of the induction arrangements. And that's set out on the slide. So, there's those very practical elements of IT knowledge. How do we assist councillors to use things like the laptops, and if there are telephones to be provided, to use those to access the likes of emails and such. We've got to make sure that the basic understanding of key elements of how the council works, local government works, so that the restrictions are there, those legal requirements, particularly around things like declarations of interest that we have at every meeting, but the general declaration as well, and how that integrates into decision making. The wider sort of governance arrangements of a council, such as tendering with executive, non-executive functions. So we'll be introducing those relatively early on. We've got the new code of conduct to have training on that Councillor Guglielmi's referenced, and so we're picking up on that and trying to make sure that early on we reference it, that we build on that, and then build on that. So that there is hopefully the intended understanding and avoidance of individuals that are elected not complying with their legal obligations. The slide also references those mandatory trainings, so there is a need to think about the restrictions and the requirements on councillors making decisions in a planning sense, and also in relation to licensing, and for those that are engaged in looking at things like the external auditor's report, and considering statement of accounts and the such like, that there's that level of understanding for those on the likes of the audit committee. As well as hearings, those individuals that are involved in things like standards hearings, and sort of human resources, such matters where they are required to sit as a tribunal and hear things. So that's the sort of underlining elements of it. As I've tried to sort of reference, we are trying to approach it on a building blocks approach to try to not overly bombard newly elected councillors. It will feel like that, but we don't want to do that. We want to actually spread out that induction training and that recognition that maybe it's actually going to be more like a year. I mean, there are a number of councillors elected first time in 2019 that you talk to, and they will tell you if they knew now what they knew in 2019, they would have done things differently over the term of their office, because it has been that journey of learning that has taken them that period of time. There also is that fact that we want to make sure that we adjust and adapt that training to reflect the requirements that councillors have. We will have councillors that are returning and those people that are first-time councillors, and it's trying to balance the needs across the whole council. So there's underlying elements that have been trying to sort of shape the induction arrangements. Maybe it's constraints, maybe it's just getting on with the business of council, but we are, as always, looking at a programme of meetings, and we need to be mindful of those. So those people elected on the 4th of May will take up office on the 10th of May, and then have their first collective meeting as the annual council on the 23rd of May. And they will set the dates, but provisionally these are the dates that are shown. So we've got to think about making sure that we get some mandatory training for planning committee members in time for their meeting on the 6th of June. We are anyway scheduling some training for those on licensing, because we will need to set a meeting in June or July of that committee. Audit committee meets at the 29th of June, and we're looking at that training in order to support the requirements for the mandatory training for that, and also the role of councillors sitting on cabinet with their first meeting being on the 23rd of June. So we will be conscious of those, and they are in elements of providing induction, elements of constraints on us to think about. So we already have, and every councillor was supplied with a copy of what we call Signpost, which is an extensive document with information about the council for those people that are either first elected or returning, to assist them navigate through the council structures and how to access that for their own personal role as councillors, and to support constituents with their needs. We'll be having an initial letter to those candidates that are elected. So at the count, we'll be handing that to them, and that will have some key dates for them. We'll also be sharing those key dates with all candidates in the election. So that will be happening. Nominations don't close until the 4th of April. So after that, we'll be sharing with all the candidates some key dates that we would like them to be conscious of in programming now, so that we can maximise attendance at those key events as relevant for them. So we're actually going to have a new councillors event. So those ones brand new elected councillors, and so that's being provided on the 11th of May. That's going to be one of the dates that we share at this stage with candidates and remind them of with the initial letter. And a more general welcome event to all councillors, where we would hope to, as I say, maximise, have a full house attendance if at all possible, building on the good work that we had in 2019 that was well received. So we'll be using the theatre and having the opportunity for individual councillors to meet with representatives from the range of services that the council delivers and the range of functions. So that will be that opportunity. At that event, we will be, as I said earlier, dealing with a range of matters, but including code of conduct, the governance arrangements, the sort of role of the executive, what happens with non-executive functions, how they differ, overview and scrutiny functions, live streaming, that we've mentioned already, as well as declarations of interest. So there'll be an initial introduction there. Perhaps I should say, when somebody comes in and signs their declarations of acceptance of office shortly after the elections, those successful candidates will also be obviously introducing the code of conduct to them at that stage and asking them to sign to say that they will be abiding by that. So there will be an element of discussion at that stage. So that's our first building block. Second one being the general welcome event that is referenced there. We're also having tours of the district, as it says there. So they're already being planned and programmed to support the understanding of it, of the district. Because if you're elected for a particular ward or a particular area of the district, you may not be as familiar as long-standing councillors with the full extent of the district and the role of the district council in respect of that entire area. So there's just an image of the front page of Signpost, and on there it's probably a bit too small, but the index there is repeated and it is extensive. In the information that it provides, but again, probably relatively superficial. It can't cover absolutely everything. What else have we got? Well, we've got, we're making progress with selecting a date for the planning training, so that will be for the first meeting of the planning committee. Planning officers, we're in discussions with those now. We were hoping to have selected that date before today's meeting, but nevertheless, just reassurance that it is happening. It is being planned and a date will be identified within the next day or two, I suggest. We've got some licensing training that has been booked for the 8th of June in the evening to support those members that will be sitting on licensing committee. We're doing that in conjunction with a range of other councils within Essex. Audit training, Karen is on the task to establish a couple of modules, I think, for audit training in time for the first audit committee meeting, and so we'll be populating that in our plans as well. In addition to the general welcome event, we're intending to have this consultative event. It's might feel like a grandiose title, but it's an opportunity to get as many of the 48 councillors as we can together at the end of May to start the process of looking at what really should be the priorities of the new council going forward, and looking at the building blocks that will constitute the part of the corporate plan. The intention behind that is that can then go off to a Cabinet away day on the 9th of June, and the Cabinet will be looking at what's coming out of that, what's coming out of a similar event that we'll be running for stakeholders and for the public, so that we are developing our corporate plan. The overriding, obviously, for those that may be watching the live stream, understanding that the corporate plan is the underlying requirement, the underlying policy framework for the council. We've got council development sessions throughout the year. The first one is on the 21st of June, and that will actually be on the Code of Conduct. So that, again, is part of that building block approach to understanding things like the Code of Conduct. And just that reassurance that we do have evaluation sheets that are used alongside our training to make sure that we're picking up on where individuals that have attended those training feel that it's been good or needs improvement, and we learn from that. In addition, there's the LGA online training resource, which is made available to all councillors, and that has extensive information online that anybody can dip into at any point in time, at their leisure. And that also includes a range of matters, including data protection, freedom of information, the Equalities Act, and as the more service-based sort of training on things like planning and licensing. So that is available, and we'll be making sure that individuals can access that. We're also intending this year to introduce this arrangement where we're going to be having a questionnaire that we'll be inviting councillors to complete, looking at their development needs, looking at those, what their level of knowledge is and experience is, so that we can work with them to make sure that we provide development opportunities that address those areas that they consider or otherwise are identified is in need of being addressed through the council development sessions, and respecting that individuals learn in different ways. Some people will learn better through reading materials. Some people will work better working with interactive online resources, such as the LGA resource, and others will want to be in a room having somebody talking to them. We're also providing some service-based videos, probably again building on the vlogs that the chief executive is producing for staff. We can utilise that so that through the council's online resource for councillors, we can give access to a range of video resources provided by heads of service, assistant directors, about different areas of service, so that we support that understanding and that opportunity for councillors to dip in and learn more about different subject matters. So that there's an induction plan word cloud, which is really just there to indicate that we are busy working away, developing that plan. It is picking up, I would suggest, a range of different training requirements and trying to address the training needs that that we can identify. And we have spoken with those councillors that were first elected in 2019. We have spoken with that wider group through the Councillor Development Working Party to develop the induction plans, and we will continue to work with councillors in the new council following the elections to shape development and training for them in the next period. So that's the end of the presentation, Chairman. So, but obviously here for questions.
Thank you, Chief. It was very detailed. I mean, it's explosive subject really, training when it comes to new councillors, because you can stand to become a councillor for any number of reasons. It can be because that's very much what you've wanted to do for many years, or it could be on a whim in the pub. So then having to be exposed to such a variety of different things, should you be thrust into the administration seats, then yeah, we do have to have everything in place. And I definitely feel from 15 when I was first elected to 19 when I was re-elected, we've put together a very intense and much more suitable schedule of training. Right, are there any questions, please? Yes, Councillor Henderson, please.
Will there be allowances made with some of the training sessions? Obviously, it could be a completely new council. Taking into account some members do work with some of the training sessions. Will there be some evening ones? Thank you.
Certainly, Councillor Henderson. I mean, there are certain events, and we're trying to keep those as minimal as possible that are daytime, and asking others to consider. So the licensing training, for instance, is in the evening. Talking with planning officers only today before the meeting, just trying to finalise that date. We didn't quite achieve it, but we're talking to them about, you know, perhaps it's better in the evening because of the capacity, as you say, of working councillors. And we don't want to exclude those from those training sessions. So.
Clarissa, yes.
Certainly, Chairman. So what we'll do is share with the independent persons the schedule, particularly of the more general training opportunities, and obviously they would be invited to come along to those.
I like that. Any other questions? Right, okay. Is there any noting or voting to be done?
It's noting, Chairman.
Do we all agree that we note that presentation and the findings within? Yep, noted. Thank you. That leads us then on to the quarterly complaints update. I've always really wanted to sort of just gloss over this item every time. You know, maybe in my last meeting, perhaps we could do that. Can we take it as noted? Or do you want to read it all out? Go on then.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick update on matters received by the monitoring officer. From the last time we met on cases you were appraised of, 2 of those are still ongoing with some further work to be explored. And then since the meeting of the committee, 2 further have been received, and in that time they've been closed with no further action for both of them, and then another one continuing. We said last time that the monitoring officer will be delivering DPI training on the requirements to a parish councillor, and a date for that has now been confirmed. And it became apparent to the monitoring officer of a need for refresher training of the impacts of declaring personal interests at meetings of the council. Guidance has been offered in electronic form from the monitoring officer. If there was a longer period and more formal meetings before the district elections, training would be organised. And a case of non-declaration and registration of a disclosable pecuniary interest is being explored in the appropriate manner by the monitoring officer, and there haven't been any requests for dispensation in this period. That's it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Karen. That was tolerable. So thank you. That, I believe, is the last item, other than to say when the next meeting is, which is the 19th of July. Monitoring officer has been mentioned a couple of times, and I know she'll be eagerly tuned into this broadcast. Just wanted to say personally thanks to her, and I've already done that via email, but she is a great guiding light of this council, and I wouldn't wish to be in her shoes, if I'm totally honest, and she does a fantastic job steering not only this committee but the council as a whole in her monitoring officer role, so very much thanks to her. once again, thanks again to everyone that's taken part in this meeting and committee in the last 4 years, and I hope to see all of you again in some form in the new council that will be formed on May the 4th. So thank you very much, everybody, and that is the meeting closed.